Hey guys, Leftward Al here, and today I wanted to introduce you to the second most ability spammy loadout I have found so far. If you wish to see what truly is the most spammy Destiny build, subscribe and stick around. I plan on having that video come out sooner than later. Anyways, you may know how good Prismatic Titan is at spamming Consecration, but what you probably don't know is that you're using it completely wrong. Well, most of you are anyway. The truth is, you can spam all of your Titan's abilities quite easily, but I rarely see anyone do it properly if Heart of Inmost Light. But don't just slap it into your Prismatic Titan build, you won't generate abilities half as fast as I am without these mods, fragments, and weapons. With that said, I know most of you value your time more than I value of you, so I'm just gonna list the bare bones of the build for you to use and try out on your own. For your weapon, use a Darkness, preferably Strand, primary ammo of Pugilist. Buried Bloodlines for your exotic weapon, and preferably Cataphract GL3 or Edge Transit for your heavy weapon. Finally, make sure to equip Heart of Inmost Light for that sweet ability regen. For your subclass, use Twilight Arsenal, Thruster, Frenzied Blade, and Thermite Grenades. Your aspect should be Knockout and Consecration. This gives you 5 fragment slots, which should consist of Facet of Hope, Protection, Awakening, Bravery, and Balance. There are too many armor mods to say, so here's the full list of them. While we are looking at this, don't forget to hit the like button if you're liking the build so far, and leave a comment below if there's anything you would change in this build. Let's go over the main engine of this build, that being Heart of Inmost Light. This chest piece gives some of the most easy and efficient ability regen in the game, simply by using either your grenade, melee, or class ability. You get both ability regeneration and a damage boost for the other 2 abilities. This can stack up to 2 times for each individual ability. It is worth to note, in Bungie's infinite wisdom, it was decided to simplify the old buff timer, which was split into 3 separate buffs for each ability into 1 buff timer. This is despite the exotics still working the same as before, making it incredibly hard to tell which buff is active, as well as incredibly misleading. As for each individual buff, both melees and grenades get a 400% then 800% regeneration rate. Melee abilities then gain a 10 then 20% damage buff, while grenades get a 20 and 35% damage buff. Class abilities only get a 25 then 50% regeneration buff. These buffs pair quite nicely with Prismatic Titan, as they have the best abilities for activating the perk. Frenzied Blade has 3 charges, making chaining it to get the higher tier buffs really easy. Pair this along with Thruster as the shortest cooldown among their class abilities. On top of this, the aspects Consecration and Knockout both have some odd but beneficial interactions with Heart of Inmost Light. Whenever the first wave of Consecration hits an opponent, both your grenade and class ability receive 2 stacks of the empowered buff. This lets you gain the benefits of 2 charged melee attacks while only using half a melee ability. Knockout just transforms your standard melee attack into a powered one. This grants grenade and class ability buffs for no ability cost at all. It is also worth mentioning Stoicism has Spirit of Inmost Light in the first column. However, Spirit of Inmost Light does not afford you the damage buffs as well as half of the ability regeneration rate of Heart of Inmost Light. Now, moving on from that to our abilities, Twilight Arsenal is used as our super, as it is the most malleable super. You can use it for boss damage where it will weaken targets. You can use it for boss damage where it will weaken targets, or throw some axes at yellow bars and then go around, taking out other enemies with the axes it leaves behind. As mentioned before, Thruster is used for its short cooldown, while Frenzied Blade is used for having 3 ability charges. Finally, Thermite Grenades are probably the easiest to use and have the potential to defeat the most enemies. On top of this, it scorches targets, which synergizes very well with Consecration, which will cause ignitions on any scorched targets. For aspects, Consecration is the focal point of this loadout. Consecration consumes half of your melee charge to leap into the air and send out a wave of fire that scorches enemies. Use your melee while in the air to land on the ground and send out a second wave of fire. This second wave will ignite any scorched targets. This translates into a ton of damage and easy ad clear. earlier. This is only compounded by Frenzied Blade having 3 charges, allowing you to do 3 back-to-back Consecration slams, which is quite similar to what I did to your mother. This energizes with our other aspect, Knockout. Knockout activates when critically wounding an enemy, transforming your regular melee into an arc melee ability that uses no charge and has increased lunge and damage. As long as Knockout is activated, any melee final blows will make you amplified and restore some of your health. This includes Consecration Slam, so you essentially have an easy way to make yourself amplified and regenerate some health. In total, these aspects give us 5 fragments to use. Facet of Balance is probably the most prolific of the bunch. Rapidly defeating 3 enemies with light damage grants 10% melee ability charge. While doing the same with darkness damage grants grenade energy. We are constantly defeating enemies with Consecration, meaning Consecration can regenerate itself. This doesn't only apply for Consecration though. Our grenade will proc this and regenerate our melee, and so will our energy weapon. On top of this, ideally you should use a Strand primary, so you should have a good chance to proc the grenade regeneration as well. Facet of Protection is pretty simple. When you're near 3 or more enemies, you gain a 15% damage reduction, while Transcendent, that is increased to 32%. Facet of Bravery serves as a way to empower your weapons. Grenade final blows grant volatile rounds to your void weapons, while melee final blows grant unraveling rounds to your Strand weapons. Facet of Blessing will start health regeneration on any melee kill. This easily increases our survivability tenfold. On top of this, while you're Transcendent, any teammate near you will also regenerate health. This may seem overkill with Devour from Buried Bloodline, but this works great to ensure you stay alive in case you run out of Devour or haven't activated it yet. Finally, Facet of Honor grants Transcendence energy, matching any elemental pickup you interact with. This simply applies to tangles, which happen quite often due to Facet of Bravery's unraveling rounds. This gives a 10% bonus to your Darkness Transcendence bar and acts as an easy way to balance out your light and dark. Onto your weapons, use Buried Bloodlines for your exotic. This is a void special ammo sidearm which serves as both an ability regeneration tool and an easy way to regenerate your health. Just hitting your shots with the weapon grants health, and after 4 rapid kills, Buried Bloodline grants you the Devour buff. This buff regenerates your health and grants you a minimum of 7.5% grenade energy and refreshes itself on any final blows. On top of this, while Devour is active, this sidearm will weaken any enemy on hit with the Catalyst. This is a great way to deal some extra damage to any tougher enemies. For your primary weapon, I highly suggest using a Strand weapon with Pugilist. The reason for a Strand weapon is for the unraveling rounds you will gain from Facet of Bravery, and Pugilist serves as a way to regenerate your melee abilities quicker. Unraveling rounds cause any hit from Strand weapons to unravel targets, dealing more damage as the enemy takes damage. On top of this, unraveling rounds also cause your Strand weapons to gain anti-barrier properties, which are just a big convenience for any weapon to have. No more hitting random immune shields, and the possibility to overpenetrate multiple targets. As for Pugilist, every final blow with the weapon will regenerate 10% of your melee charge, so more ability energy for the taking. As for specific weapons with these traits, I'd highly recommend Better Devils from Crucible or Michael's Reverence from Root of Nightmares. Both of these roll Swashbuckler in the 4th column. This lets the weapon have a 33% damage buff on any melee kill. Since you're using melee so much, you pretty much always have a 33% damage buff. For your heavy weapon, go ahead and rock whatever you want. As long as it has good DPS, it will be a good weapon to choose. Of course, preferably avoid your Strand heavy so you are able to match damage surges with other weapons. I personally like using Edge Transit or Cataphract GL3 for this loadout. Both allow me to match weapon surges with either my primary or special ammo weapon, and both are some of the highest damage heavy weapons in the game at the moment. Just make sure to use Envious Assassin and Bait Switch on the weapons. Envious Assassin gives a larger magazine size on final blows combos with other weapons, and Bane Switch gives a 30% damage boost on dealing damage with all of your weapons. Now onto the armor mods of this loadout. Basic stats are as close to 100 resilience as possible for damage reduction and class ability cooldown. After that, go for strength to reduce melee cooldowns as much as possible, then put any remaining points into discipline for decreased grenade cooldown. For your helmet, use a hands-on and 2 dynamo mods. Hands-on will help generate supercharge after every melee final blow of a minimum of 1%. This may not seem like much, but it adds up over time, and this loadout has potential to get a ton of melee final blows. Dynamo is used for much of the same reason. On class ability usage while near an enemy with 2 dynamos as a Titan, you will gain 4.8% of your super. Mind you, this is an incredibly quick charging ability that you'll likely have on the lowest cooldown possible due to maximum resilience. Now for your arms, you'll want to use Impact Induction, Focusing Strike, and Heavy-Handed. Impact Induction and Focusing Strike will grant 12% ability energy for specific charged melee hits. Focusing Strike grants class ability energy on melee, while Impact Induction decreases your grenade energy on melee hit. Heavy-Handed spawns an orb of power on charged melee final blows. All these perks not only work with Consecration and Frenzied Blade, but regular melee is empowered by Knockout as well. These mods also work incredibly well while Transcendent. You'll be able to spam out Transcendent grenades noticeably quicker, leading to a longer lasting and more damaging Transcendence. Onto your chest piece. Use Concussive Dampener, Solar Resistance, and Harmonic Resistance. Harmonic Resistance will become a Void Resistance due to Twilight Arsenal, and in combination with other resistances will decrease your damage to some of the most annoying and prevalent damage types in the game, while allowing you 4 armor energy for stat mods. Of course, modify these resistances based on what opponent you're facing. For your legs, just match 2 to your heavy weapon damage and the other to whatever your other weapon is. I personally prefer to match Buried Bloodline to fetch transit, so double Void Surge and a Strand Surge for me. Finally, for your class item, Outreach, Reaper, and Time Dilation are the most solid picks. Outreach grants 12% melee energy on class ability usage. Reaper will spawn an orb of power on the first weapon final blow shortly after using your class ability, and Time Dilation increases how long your armor charges last from 10 to 15 seconds. With all of that said, that's pretty much a loadout. As for a specific gameplay loop, just spam abilities. If it's charged, you're doing something wrong. Make sure to activate Devour with Buried Bloodline before your rampage and use your super, then spam heavy on any boss. So thanks for watching the video. If you liked the video, leave a like below, and if you like the content style, subscribe, it means a lot. Don't forget to leave a comment below telling me how I messed up otherwise. In the description, I also have playlists all my Destiny 2 content as well as other builds, so check that out if you want to, and have a good one, and goodbye.